Hello, Elizabeth.
Well, hello, Laura. It's nice to see you.
Well, and we're going to, you're going to share some memories.
Mm.
And I think the first thing you probably like to share is something that's very interesting, how your Salesian spirituality imbued your life.
Well, I really have been blessed with the Salesian spirituality. And but one funny thing was quite a few years ago when the School of Theology was still operating in Washington, they opened up the courses to lay people. And I signed up for one of the courses. And during the taking the course, they sold chances for a Christmas basket of cheer. And so a few days before Christmas, this man came to our door and said, is this where Liz Quinlan lives? And my husband said yes, and he said, well, and he was in Mufti, and he said, I'm Father DeLilio, and she took chances on the basket of cheer. And Jerry said, well, he said, I have to tell you that since she has taken those courses on Salesian spirituality, she's a lot easier to get along with. And of course I said, sweetheart, you didn't tell him that. He said, well, it was the truth, so I had to. So that was, and that it was and has been quite a blessing in my life to have learned about the Salesian spirituality and to be blessed to become a daughter of St. Francis de Sales.
Well, let's go back to the early 70s when Beth Markey came to Washington from Chicago. Tell us a little bit about her coming to Washington and what she did.
Okay, could you get me a drink of water? I'm so thirsty. Oh, and there's one right over there.
Yeah. All right, here you go.
Thank you. Well, Beth Markey was from the North Shore of the Daughters of St. Francis de Sales in Chicago. And her husband, Howard, was appointed the chief judge of the Court of Appeals for the United States. And so they moved to Washington, and they moved into Our Lady of Victory Parish. And Beth felt that she should start a group of the daughters in Washington. And so she decided that she would start the group. She would ask people in the choir if they would be interested in joining the group. And so one evening, and then after she had started to gather the group around, I had a nun friend visiting me, Sister Laurentia. And Sister Laurentia, Jerry and I had met her when we were in the Air Force. And she was just a wonderful person. And so she made a holy hour every day, and that did not include Mass. So every day I would take her to a different a church for her holy hour, unaccustomed as I was to making a holy hour, even a holy half hour. And then this day I was, we had gone out to the shrine for the holy hour. And I asked the Lord then, I said, there's so many areas in my life I need to improve on. I don't quite know where to start. And so that evening, Pilar Logel, who was a daughter at that time, stopped by, and she said, Liz, have you thought about joining the daughters? And I just said, I don't know anything about them. And so she told me a little bit. And then a couple of days later, I went to a meeting at church. I don't remember what it was about. And Laura DiJoseph asked me if I had thought about the daughters. And I said, well, I don't know that much about it. Pilar talked to me a little bit. And so then she told me a little bit more about the group. And after she left, I talked with Sister, and I said, I don't know if I want to get involved in all of that. And so she said, well, she said, since you asked the Lord to let you know what you should do, and 2 people independently have told you about the daughters, she said, I think you need a good reason not to try it. And so she said, if it isn't what the Lord wants for you, it won't work out. And so now there's almost 40 years I'm still here. They haven't kicked me out yet. So, but it's been quite a blessing to me in my life, because the Salesian spirituality it's not one more thing to do. It just helps you do what you need to do in your duties of state, and it's been quite helpful, and I think that we're lucky, because it brings also a spiritual friendship with people who can help you along your life journey.
And when we started, it was a 3-year program rather than a 2-year.
That's right, that's right.
We needed more.
Some people are slower learners than others.
We needed more. And then you became a companion as well.
That's right. After you made your consecration, then I think it was 2 years more of study on Salesian spirituality, and then you became a companion or a spiritual friend to help somebody else along the way.
How many companions have you, how many associates have you taken through, Elizabeth? Do you remember?
I think about 13.
Mm-hmm. So you have not only imbued the society with Salesian spirituality, but your own kind of spirituality, which encompassed a great deal of hospitality.
Well, I think that I was blessed with my husband, because he was loved to have people and entertain. So, and then I think that Beth Markey she gave us the example.
Yes, hospitality and zeal.
Zeal and joy,
And joy.
And the other thing about Beth was that she was the same with everybody. Like, she'd have she would invite you to a dinner with, and like the Chief Justice or some of the justices would be there, but she was just kind and joyful with everybody.
Yes, she was. And I always felt she was very, very motherly and not legalistic.
No.
She would bend the rules a little bit
Mm-hmm.
to accomplish what she felt was the most important thing, and that was sharing St. Francis de Sales and Salesian spirituality.
Yeah.
The rest could be worked on.
That's right.
So, you became, I guess, did you become directress after me?
Well, I became the treasurer after Margarita Gutman.
Okay.
And then I became the directress after you.
Okay, all right. And then, I guess Beth depended on you a great deal for helping her, because things were going quite well. She was developing groups up and down the East Coast.
That's true. And then the other thing was that her health was not that good.
No.
I mean, she had heart trouble. And I think that when that got worse, then she asked me to be the regional directress. And it was, and nobody ever felt more overwhelmed or underqualified than I did. But anyway, Father Fiorelli said, now Liz, not to worry, that there's such a thing as the grace of state, and the Lord will give you the grace that you need to do it. And so it was a wonderful experience. I mean, I got far more than I gave when I was the regional directress. And an interesting aside was when he was being discussed for the to be the
General Superior.
What?
Superior General.
The Superior General. His sister called me and said, Liz, don't pray that he doesn't get it. And I said, Dee Dee, I said, I can't pray for that because he'd be wonderful. And I said, he did get it. And then I was able to tell him what he told me, and he said, you would have to remember that.
Well, speaking of Father Fiorelli and the Oblates, when we first started, when Beth started the Daughters, we were very much involved with visitation right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
And the nuns did an awful lot to help us and encourage us and pray for us. And Beth had met with Father Gallagher at DeSales Hall, and we had had an early meeting with him, and he shared with us the life of St. Francis de Sales. And I believe he was the one that sent us Father Fiorelli, who I think had been newly ordained at that time, and Father Mark Mealy, who was still in seminary.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And our first retreat at visitation, which Delphine Medill thought was way too cheap. But what she didn't realize was I guess we gave the nuns a donation.
Oh yeah, we always gave them a donation.
And then we brought our own food.
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember Margarita saying to Hans Peter, her husband, now don't let me forget to go by the liquor store to get the wine. So that encouraged him that this wasn't a group that was too spiritual for him. But